fourth session of the Seeds Learning Group. Thanks so much for being with us the last 4 weeks. Today we are focused on planning for the future. So the email request for collecting information about your future needs will really come in handy during today's session. Next slide. In particular, Luis will start us off with a review of everything we've covered in sessions 1 to 3. We've been through a lot, so I want to make sure we take a moment to pause and remind you of all that we've touched on. And then we're talking about planning an SSA. That was something that a lot of you mentioned interest in and wanting some more information about. So we'll have a session on that. Before getting into hearing about your upcoming SSAs that you have planned, the potential constraints or challenges you think you might face in terms of implementing that, and then support needs going forward. So we'll give you a brief overview of the way that Scale supports implementing partners. And yeah, I'll be interested to hear the kind of support need ideas that you have for future. We will do an evaluation while we're all together so that hopefully we can capture your feedback on the Seeds Learning Group. And then we'll have our closing remarks and certificates, which reminds me, I have received a lot of your names. Thank you for those who have filled it out already, but I'm going to put in the chat box just a spreadsheet for you to write how you would like your name represented on your certificate of participation. So please take a moment to fill that out when you get a second. With that, I'll pass it over to Luis to give us a reminder of all we've been through.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good evening. Good afternoon. I'm going to do here just a quick recap of what we've covered so far in this first 3 sessions. Next, please. Okay, you might remember that the request to have this. Yes, hello. You might remember that this request to have this learning group started almost 1.5 years ago when Scale did consultations on seed system assessments. So we've been thinking about this a long time. Next. For this specific group, we had 5 separate aims: solid understanding of seed systems, understanding of seed system assessment, looking at tools, looking at common pitfalls, and a clear understanding of BHA expectations around SSA. You know, basically, we've covered this all already, but let's move forward now. Next, you can see there have been 4 sessions. Most of you have been at all. Well done. Let's just go through a bit about the main themes covered. Okay, so in session 1, next, we did understanding of seed systems. We said, what is seed? Is this seed? This is formal sector seed. Next. We recognized also informal sector seed. So there's a range of seed that is important to farmers. Next. We then looked at the seed security framework. And I'm sure by now that you all know these 4 features in depth: availability, access, seed quality, health, and variety suitability. Next. What's interesting is that we found that when you have a problem, like insects attacking cowpea in storage, you might have to address not just one seed security constraint, but several. And we started to map these. Next. We looked at the channels through which farmers source seed. You might remember the formal channels, which are the orange, government commercial, the informal channels, local markets, networks, the purple, farmers' own stocks, the intermediary ones. And I think we basically agreed that all are important in considering assessment and response. Next. We talked a lot about agri-dealers. Next. We also talked a lot about local markets, where you can get seed, but you have to choose wisely. Next. Still in session 1, we ended looking at the goals of aid. And they're different goals. You can aim towards food security, nutrition, climate resilience, income generation, but you have to tailor the response to the goal. And I think that's something worth discussing in the future. Next. Amazing when we looked at our group is that among us, we design aid to meet each of these multiple goals. So sometimes food security, sometimes climate resilience, sometimes income, but we're involved in all. Next. Okay, we went to session 2, and session 2 focused specifically on seed system assessment. And remember, we're using this term generically for rapid seed system assessment, seed security assessment. It's a generic term. Okay, we go to seed system assessment, and we're doing them because we agreed that food issues are not equal to seed issues. They're linked, but they're also quite distinct. Next. We reviewed the websites that we know that have some seed system assessment tools, and we hope by now that you've all looked at each of these websites. They all have value to add. Next, please. Just to remind you what they look like, but I'm sure you have visited them. Next. It's in session 2 that we started to go into depth on seed system assessment content. Hi, Alex. And we agreed that it has 3 very distinct components. You have to assess seed system functioning, both the demand and supply. So not just supply, you have to look at demand. You have to identify the problem. Is it short term? Is it long term? Are there opportunities? And then you recommend responses. So it's 3 steps, pretty clear when you implement. Next. In terms of assessing demand, we shared a really cool kind of tool, which can tell you honestly if farmers have need or not, and what kind of need. And it revolves around asking about, are you planting more or less of the same? Next. And then you as a group assessed supply. You went through the method to assess supply. What was interesting, and this is just an example from group 2, is that you looked at the seed channels that have to be scrutinized to assess supply. So not just formal supply, but agro dealers, local markets, farmers, seed, cooperatives, borrowing from networks. This is how you get at a real assessment of supply. Next. Then the last part of session 2 was on responses. And just to remind you that there are many recent documents up to date on response advice. Next. Wilfred reviewed for us the range of current responses, and this is from the CERT, the Seed Emergency Response Toolkit. Basically, there are 3 types. Direct distribution, market-based approaches focused on clients, market-based approaches focused on suppliers. So there's quite a range available to us. Next. What you showed us in the group is that there might be multiple response options. So we took a single problem here, farmers need more seed. Oops, I lost my screen, just wait a sec. All good. Farmers need more seed, but cannot buy. And you as a group mapped, I think you had 3 or 4 options, and you have to decide the strengths and weaknesses and which works best. Next, please. Okay, we then moved to session 3, which is just last week, and we looked at the common pitfalls and minimum standards. Those were the 2 big issues last week. For common pitfalls, Wilfred and BHA and you highlighted 8 key ones, but there might be others. So for instance, assuming farmers have no seed at all, choosing crops for DSD because they're easy to procure, overestimating seed needs, assuming that all seed must be certified. Next. And what was surprising, but maybe expected, is that we charted if these are pitfalls for us, and for a majority of all of us, often we confront these pitfalls. So I think we're going to try to issue some pithy advice on this with you after the seminar. Next. Then just to give you an example, inferior crop choice for DSD, we've mapped out in a set of advice for you, an initial set of responses, and we hope you've looked at this already. Next. We did issue what we think is the first overview on a comparison of the tools. And the major message here is that the tools have a great deal in common. In fact, more in common than they differ. The big difference at this point seems to be sample size. Next. We, as a group, or particularly the facilitators, don't recommend one tool set or another. We just suggest that any tool should meet minimum standards. Next. And then, of course, we ended the session last week doing an initial review of the minimum standard titles, context, theme. So we didn't look at them in detail, but we looked at them in overview. And I think everyone in this group agreed that basic minimum standards are needed, and maybe we can proceed in sharpening these further. Next. Just to remind you again that every session has ended with giving you some insights and accesses to the resources available, and we hope to do more of that in the coming week or so. Okay, today, so we've done an enormous amount together, and it's been together in the last 3 weeks, 3 sessions. What are we going to do today? We are going to have a session on planning an SSA, so the logistics. Many of you have asked for this. And then we're going to focus on you. What are your SSA plans? What are your constraints and support needs? So we hope to learn a lot, especially from you today. Thanks very much. Any questions? Okay, let's move on.
Louise, Joanne has her hand up. Go ahead, Joanne.
Okay, I didn't even see that. Thanks, Abby. Yep. Joanne?
No, I didn't have a hand up.
Okay, someone else had a hand up, or we're fine? Anyway, at any point, this is our...
This is me, Betty.
Hi, Betty.
Yes, thank you for the quick recap. I think it is really very good because this has been very important session. But my request is just one. I don't know, because recording has been done throughout. If that recording can be shared back with the attendees of this training, I think it would be good for one to reflect back on the training using the recordings. Thank you.
So Abby, do you want to comment on that about the availability of recordings and notes and things like that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Betty. Yes, we will be sharing sometime in the next week. We'll compile all of the notes, the Google documents that you guys have input to, the recordings, the presentations, all the resources that we've shared, and we'll compile them all and make them available to you so that, as you said, you can reflect on them, but also that you can share with your colleagues as well. So they will be available.
Thank you so much.
And Betty, you asked a great question, because the point is to share. You know, how do you share with your colleagues and carry this discussion further? So good question and good comment. Anything else before I go into some of the logistics of planning a seed security assessment? Okay, next Next, please, Ashton. Yeah. Okay, so many of you have asked first, in terms of logistics, how rapid are these tools? How much time does it take? You know, no matter what tool set you use, basically it takes 3 to 5 days per site or region, meaning training people, doing the work, and getting the data out. So if you have one region, let's say like central Malawi, you could do it in a week. If you have 3 regions, northern, central, southern Malawi, you could do it in a week if you have multiple teams, but if you have only one team, you might have to spread it out a bit. So no matter what tool set you use, it's pretty rapid. Next. Here's an example of an actual field plan from Timor-Leste. We did 4 different sites in 4 different regions of the country. We started field work 9 October. We finished field work 2 weeks later, but then we fed back to the public 16 days later, October 25th. So we had the PowerPoint, the recommendations, and we got feedback within less than 3 weeks. Yep. Next. The key features of an SSA, what do you have to think about, you as managers? Well, it is desk-based, but it's up to now always also field-based. You have to go to the field to find out, to double check what is really going on. It's best done by teams, and I'll explain this in a moment. It has been done occasionally by single experts, people who fly in or fly out, say they're doing an assessment or are doing one, but to be honest, up to now, there's no established methodology for doing this. So I'm not convinced about the rigor of the single expert assessments, at least up to now, and maybe that's a gap area to discuss. Next, please. Teams, okay, you have teams. First, you have a facilitator, and facilitators are people like you in this course. I mean, experts who know about seed systems. Any of you, I think, could be a facilitator. What does a facilitator do? You have the list there. You train, you organize the background desk assessments, you manage the field process, the public feedback. I mean, all of you do this routinely, probably for other assessments. And then you facilitate the final report, which often is what really lags. Next. Okay, by teams, who's on a team? What does that mean? Well, it's best done by implementers who actually will follow up, who will be on the ground later. So let's say if it's CARE or ActionAid or World Vision or NRC or any of you on the call, it's best done by people who are interested in the assessment and who will follow up later. So they might have some farming systems expertise, you might have some seed specialists, you might have some economists. Always it's great to have gender and vulnerability specialists. We often bring ministry staff, seed certification people onto the field, and then the translators, data entry people, drivers. Now, I know people are often tempted just to use enumerators, hire some university staff and use enumerators, they go out and they come back. This helps, but enumerators aren't as engaged in the subsequent use of the data. At least that's our experience. Next. So, basically, programming capacity, doing teamwork has trade-offs. Assessments by experts are quicker. Assessments which are extractive, meaning you just go and you come back, they're quicker. But capacity building assessments, led by people like you who create teams, may have longer term benefits. People understand systems, they think about diverse response options. I think with informed teams, you make smarter decisions, particularly on the action plans, both short and longer term. Next. So just to get your feedback on this, we're going to do a quick poll, for your routine assessments, any kind. Honestly, do you prefer single experts or do you prefer teams? What's your own preferences? So you have a poll there. Click one and submit, and let's see what we think as a group. I knew I loved working with this group, okay, but whatever it is, it's harder with teams, but I think the results are better. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't think about what happens if it is a single expert, and I'll raise that later. But I'm glad we're in agreement. Okay, next, please. We've talked a lot in this co-learning thing on technical content, something on process. If you look at the last bullet point, there is no overall process guide for any of these toolkits. Not yet. But there is some specific guidance on process. And the one guidance I know is on seedsystem.org, and you'll see their work plans, their budgets, equipment you might need, how you write a concept note to the donor or the ministry, examples of launch training programs. So there is some process guidance. Ashton, can you show where that is on the tab? But I hope you can see the screen, and I hope it works. It's on the exactly. Under assessment tools, there's a tab at the bottom, tips for planning and implementation. Okay, thanks. It's there. Okay, continuing. Thanks, Ashton. Okay, just a few unique features of the SSSA toolkit, which maybe the other tools might consider. Next. There's software that allows for automated data analysis. This means that when you enter the data in Excel or on your tablet, in seconds, formatted tables pop out in seconds. So this is just an example for female-headed households. The seed they're planting for different crops is more or less than usual. What you see in this theoretical example is that for maize, seed use is up. So there probably is not a constraint. There's probably an opportunity. For Irish potato, seed use is way down. People are planting less. So there's probably a constraint. So what this allows you to do in the field is then go back immediately to farmers. Why are you expanding maize? Why are you going down on potato? It's just a field check, but it's really good for understanding what's truly happening. Next. Another tool that you might find useful calculates money used for the seed that farmers purchase. I mean, actual money that is needed or that they spend. So this is an example for Timor-Leste. What you see total for their three major crops, maize, rice, and potatoes, groundnuts there, is that they spend $9, okay? What this means is that it's not worth your giving a voucher for $20, right? Maybe you give a voucher if there's an access problem for $5. So part of what is needed, because farmers probably have some of their money on their own, but this helps you calculate the amount of access need. Next. Finally, just a summary. All of the tools, whether it's RSSA or seed security assessment or seed system assessment, they're evidence-based. I mean, they're really evidence-based. concrete action plans. And that's what's really important. You do an assessment because you want action. The tools can be used at diverse scale, 1 site, 5 sites. You have different informants. And as you know, you looked at that with your supply and demand work. And then you have results. And this is interesting. You have results for the emergency, you know, what you need to do in a few months. But you have results if you're doing this well for 1 to 2 seasons. So you can write a project, not just for 1 season, but for 1 to 2 seasons. And then if you're looking long-term, you can start to look at some of the medium-term actions that are needed. So that's where we are. Let's look briefly at the future. What is some gap work? Because, you know, we're here to think, but we're also here to anticipate the future. So I'm really looking forward to our next section. Okay, what are some of the future work gaps? We have to, we've agreed actually to refine and adopt minimum standards. Basic standards, if you like that terminology better. Some of you have mentioned adding seed security to other types of assessments. So maybe to a food security assessment. So you don't have to do both, but you can tie them together. And I just gave an example of the FAO, crop and food supply assessment missions, because we tried to do that. We've talked about the need maybe for an expert assessment when you're doing a single person or several person assessment. How can we ensure the rigor? Can we move everything to tablet? I know S34D has done a lot of work here. Can we, Seed Systems just starting, can we move everything to tablet to make it easier? And then there was a suggestion for remote, as a gap, technical support capacity. So if you have a problem, who can use Skype or call or WhatsApp? So that's the first set of gaps, but we hope to hear from you now on your own gaps and needs. Okay, I know that was really quick on logistics, on SSA planning. Any burning questions? Help me, Abby, if their hands up, because I often miss them.
I see Joanne's again.
Yes. I was wondering, how do you define the sites when you said 3 to 5 days per site? Because for taking the example of Congo, like in Tanganyika, we have 3 different offices in 3 different areas that are, I mean, it's the same region, but I would not consider they're the same sites. Like we don't work remotely or from one office into another part of the region. Like it's the same province. So I just wondered, how do you define those? Like, would we have to consider them one site because it's one province of the country, or can it be subdivided because that's how we also manage our response, our different programs, etc., and for logistics purposes as well?
So, John, that's a really important question. It's a very specific technical question. And sometimes on our co-learning, I prefer that we get more technical. You'll find guidance for this in When Disaster Strikes in the FAO manual. But it's a quick and dirty, and I'm going to start. Obviously, different agroecological zones have to be treated differently. So if it's a cassava region versus a maize region, that's probably 2 different sites. Also, it depends a lot on what you think is the impact of the stress or disaster. If one region has been heavily hit, is ongoing war, and the other is more peaceful, you might use that as a variable to differentiate. What's interesting and tricky is that often these different sites are tied by similar market systems, right? So seed moves among sites. So you have to balance differences versus commonalities. But absolutely, the two of the big variables are crops agroecosystem and disaster impact. But it's like any assessment you do, Joanne. You kind of have to sit down with your team and what makes sense for you to know what's going on commonly and variably. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks.
Just to say, Joanne, you answered something also very important. If your 3 teams have different action plans and work administratively differently, it's not bad at all to have 3 sites so that each team, each administrative office feels ownership over that site. But characterize the site well. Just characterize the site very well. And there is a form or list of parameters on how to characterize a site. I go back to seed system because I know that well, right? But characterize the site well, and then you'll know, can you extrapolate or not? Hope that wasn't too detailed.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was actually asking the question because in that region, like in the different zones where we work, agroecologically speaking, we're in the same livelihood zone, but you have different dynamics. Like you said, they're different. They're not on the same level on the market channels between the larger regional markets, and there are different crisis. The crisis is slightly different in each area. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure, like, if agroecology was the main parameter, or if we could consider different sites, just because we know from experience that it's slightly different on other aspects of the situation.
So just to confirm what you're saying, agroecology is one big parameter, but there are 5 or 6 big parameters. So don't let agroecology be the only determinant at all. Good insight.
Great, thanks.
I don't see any other hands for now, Louise.
Okay, good. Let's move on then to you, to the group. Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot, Luis. And thanks everyone for being part of this final session. Of course, we have walked the journey together. We have kept the faith, and we now want to look into the future. What does the future look like? Look like in terms of planning our seed systems assessments, if any, and whether we have any needs or whether we have any constraints that might need to be overcome as we plan our seed systems assessments. Next slide, please. Good. So just perhaps to refresh our minds and guide our thoughts on the next activity, I just want to highlight some of the needs and constraints that have come up from other consultations, including the scale-led consultation that we had on seed systems assessments, but also the discussions that we've had in our own seeds learning group here. And of course, a few things have come up, and some of them are more linked to staff capacity on issues of training of staff, which has sort of created limits on the capacity to do assessments. But also likely there has been a mention of lack of basic seed systems knowledge. And this is basically linked to the assumption that seed systems assessment is quite a daunting task, not really doable. But there's also lack of clarity on expectations and requirements by BHA on regarding the seed systems security assessments. And also there has been expressed concern by partners on the difficulty to sort of navigate the various sites that are housing the seed systems assessment tools. And so we, just to figure out our next plans, we wanted to have those at the back of our minds. Next slide, please. And so for our next activity for today, we are going to majorly think about what we are going to do in the future. And the plan is we have a Google Doc with an activity. The link has been posted in the chat box. So just open it, look at the activity. The activity is about future planning, needs and constraints. So each person is expected to sort of fill this individually. We recommend that even if you are from the same organization, please do so individually, take a separate line. And the work here is please indicate your future plans with regards to seed systems assessments, whether you're going to do one in future, and please indicate where you're going to do this in terms of the country and when you want to do this. If you have nailed the dates, you can put them in there precisely, but you can also give us approximate time that you expect to do that assessment. And then please be sure to indicate the constraints that you think need sort of attention in conducting that SSSA or SSA. And we requested that you be sort of as specific as possible. And also be sure to indicate what support needs you think will be required, and who these needs are linked to. Like, do you need any support from scale? Is it BHA? Do you have other bodies or organizations in mind that you think could be of help to these seed systems assessment? So next, I will quickly walk us through what the activity looks like. And basically, the instructions are given, and you are going to have 6 columns to fill in with the organization and whether you're planning to do an SSA. Please just write letter Y or letter N to indicate whether it's a yes or no. And if yes, of course, indicate where, that is the country you're going to do this. And also, if yes, indicate the date when you're going to do this. Like I mentioned, if you have nailed the dates, please just indicate the specific dates. And whether you're going to do one or not, we still kindly request that you include the constraints that you can think of that you think need to be addressed in conducting the seed systems assessment. And again, whether you're going to do it or not, please indicate any support needs that you think you will require along the way as you do the seed system assessment. So I think with that, I want to hand it over to Abby to share with us what Scale does to inform and guide our thoughts as we do the activity.
Thanks, Alfred.
Over to you.
Yeah, so we wanted to introduce the activity first, so you know where we're going. But we realized that at the start of the Seeds Learning Group 4 weeks ago, we didn't give an intro or kind of a quick overview of the ways that Scale and supports implementing partners. And so for that last column that Wilfred just noted about support needs moving forward, as you're thinking about those needs and how Scale as an award may be able to support some of them, we thought it might be useful to remind you or maybe introduce you for the first time to the different ways that we work with implementing partners. So this will just take a few minutes before we send you into the Google Doc. So we are BHA funded, as most, if not all of you are as well. And our aim is really to improve the impact, sustainability, and scalability of USAID BHA's activity in agriculture, natural resource management, and livelihoods activities in emergency and non-emergency contexts. So really in support of the RISAs or resilient food security activities or the emergency programs that have an agriculture, livelihoods, or NRM component, we can work with those implementing partners. And you'll notice here that the end date, we are 5 years, we started in early 2018, and our current award closes at the end of November. But we're in the process of working on a follow-on. So we are hopeful that there is a Scale 2 or a combined award with the Save the Children-led Pro-Wash activity. So the support to implementing partners related to agriculture, NRM, and livelihoods should continue. There might be a small gap in funding, but this conversation is very timely for us in thinking about the future support needs of implementing partners. So while the discussion we have today, Scale may not be able to do a lot of the support needs in the next few months, we are hopeful to have a multi-year follow-on to move a lot of those actions forward. Next slide. So in particular, just to give you a few examples of things we've worked on the last 5 years and the ways that we've supported implementing partners to date, we have 4 main areas of support that we work on. One is around technical tools and training guides, facilitator guides, training manuals. For example, Make Me a Change Agent, which is a facilitator guide for an SBC-related training for agriculture, livelihoods, and WASH. We also have an online training that goes along with that. Or, for example, the Seed Emergency Response Tool, which was created under ISSC Africa, but Scale did a review of the guide as well as contributed to the translation into French. So even if we're not directly creating a technical guide, working with other partners to make it accessible to the BHA community. On capacity strengthening, we have in-person and remote or online training opportunities. We have things like this, the Seeds Learning Group. So that bucket of work is really about strengthening implementing partner capacity around agriculture, NRM, and livelihoods. Then we have knowledge sharing and skills exchange. We do a lot of webinars, for example, on the seeds front. During COVID, we did one on seed systems in fragile contexts. We also have regional communities of practice focused on ag and NRM that some of you are a part of. Then we have learning and research. That can be impact assessments, or for example here, case studies such as on last mile seed production and distribution in fragile contexts. So this is just a quick snapshot of the types of support that we provide, but we thought it might be helpful to remind you or to put those top of mind as you go into the Google Doc here in just a second, and are thinking about the constraints you have around SSAs, around seed system programming more generally in your BHA implementation. And for that support box, if you're thinking about, is it training, is it technical guides, is it XYZ, Scale could potentially fill some of those gaps, or other partners, as Wilfred mentioned, whether it's BHA itself, or maybe your organization, like you need more support from your organization at large. So we want you to think widely about the type of support that you need. And yeah, As Wilfred mentioned, I think we've put in the chat box the Google Doc. I only see about half of you in there, so I'm going to put it back in the box now. But does anyone have questions on the activity before we give you about 10 minutes to write in? Or any questions about scale? All right, I will take that as no, in which case, go ahead and find an open row in the Google Doc. I see some of you have already started, that's great. Yeah, just make sure you're not writing over anyone else's work. So make sure you find a row that is open on one of those pages. All right, we'll bring everyone back together in about 10 minutes. And I'm noticing that the table has really wonky margins. So I'm going to try and fix that, but keep writing. Thanks for letting us know, Berhanu. We've really appreciated your participation. And please fill out this table when you get a moment. We would love to hear your thoughts as well. Okay, we have about 4 minutes left. So if you haven't gotten to the last column on support needed, please go ahead and move there. And then if you've already finished, feel free to read some of your other colleagues' comments in case that spurs some more ideas for you. Great, we have 1 minute left. So just add your thoughts and then I'll hand it over to Wilfred.
Good. Abby, we want more time for the team. I
Nope.
still see
all good.
some
Over
people
to you,
typing.
Wilfred. Yeah, I think people can continue to add as you start looking through the responses.
Sure. So I think I'm tempted to scroll the table, but then I've lifted a few things that I see as common, especially on constraints. I'm seeing mostly mentioned things have to do with budgetary limits, that means funds. We are seeing technical capacity as a major constraint across organizations. And I'm seeing issues to do with time constraints. I think my take is we are going to invite participants to talk on some of these constraints and the support needs. And just to let you know that this is a very open discussion where you are free to give your thoughts as you may want to. So I have bundled those in terms of funds, technical capacity, and time constraints, but I also see other things coming up that perhaps are related to certain organizations. And I see not much use of SSA as one thing that they think is a constraint. And of course, there is also the question of other methods already being used. So we will want to hear from the participants on those. And the fact that, of course, the feeling that the SSA might create community expectations, and that it's too complicated. Of course, I think that there's a point on the SSA being too complicated, and issues of security. And finally, I saw something that it's not a priority in the proposal. So I think it's an open discussion, and please, Luis, Abby, just feel free to chime in on something that struck you. But in the meantime, I think I will just ask people to raise their hands if they want to talk on some of the concerns or constraints and support needs that they put in there. Just please raise your hand if you want to sort of elaborate on some of those, and then we'll pick thoughts from other participants on what they think, whether they have differing thoughts or they support those assertions. So please feel free and raise up your hand, and we'll let you speak. Yes, Sadhu, go ahead. Just unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And most specifically, I am going to talk about the rapid system assessment that I mentioned in this Google Doc, the constraint, and also the way I find out. So most importantly, in 2021, the time that S34D is working with the different partners to implement and test the tool that has been developed. At the organizational level, we plan to do it for 3 countries, Niger, South Sudan, and Somalia. So, well, for Somalia, we are not implementing food security programming with BHA, but as we try to implement, to budget for it, we have had a lot of constraints. So we couldn't do it, unfortunately, the early time of 2021. And the major constraint was for funding. So we couldn't have funding, but later we tried to have internal funding from IRC that helped us to start implementing the rapid system assessment in Somalia, which is currently ongoing. And also during that time also, we come across, for the country that we have had the opportunity to pilot the different tools, some of the tools were not digitalized, like the experts, key interview discussion, the household interview was digitalized, but there are some modifications that we suggested that was not taken into consideration. So we have had the challenge of having almost all the tools. They think that the package is 6 or 7, I can't remember, to be digitalized so that it can make the work very easy. So yeah, the S3-4D have helped us, and with our M&E unit, we try to do to digitalize all the tools. It took a lot of time from both sides, but at the end of the time, we come up to digitalize and have all documents in a digital form that were being used. So yeah, we have had some constraints before implementing that evaluation, but the major constraint now at the organizational level, we are seeing how we can systematically integrate seed security assessment in our food security programming wherever we have the opportunity or wherever we are already implementing the food security programming. So just a call for any partner, most importantly for BHA, if that element can be considered when we come across in our food security programming and propose funding to conduct this rapid system assessment or seed system assessment to understand and also consider our request. It is just to help us tailor our intervention and make it more impactful at the end of the program. That is the comment I have. Sorry for the time taken. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Sadu. Luis, you have something. I see your hand up, and then we can hear from Carl. Go ahead, Luis.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to comment that it's encouraging that there are a range of countries where you're planning assessments. And at least for Northeast, 3 of the 4 I know have done rigorous seed system assessments already. So it might be useful for you to look at the background work that they did. So I think Northeast Syria, there was one done in 2016. Zimbabwe, there have been at least 2 assessments done, 2010 and then I think 2018. South Sudan, big ones have been done several times. So just encouraging you, maybe the background work can help you and then see if there are differences or commonalities. Thanks. Over to you, Wilfred.
Good. Thanks a lot. I think Carl wanted to say something about Northwest Syria. Just unmute and go ahead, Carl.
Yes, sorry, apologies, Wilfred. I'm on 3 calls right now, so I'm juggling between. We've just heard that REACH is either completed or is completing. REACH is representing a conglomeration of NGOs, Concern, Acted, Bluemont, Mercy Corps, a few others, in doing a seed security assessment. And I'm forgetting if it was in Northwest or Northeast Syria. So just wanted to make note of that. And it will cover from, I think, 2019 through 2021, because they haven't, of course, the current season, the 2022 season is still oncoming for wheat. I say this because I was just on a presentation with that. So hopefully that is forthcoming soon. Thank you. One other comment with regards to, and I'm speaking on behalf of Stephen, who is not able to be on the call right now, with the seed system security assessment and support from BHA. Yes, no, we very much want to encourage partners to do a seed system security assessment, and I would just encourage, and I'm going to drop in the link, our sector requirements from our emergency application guidelines for conducting a seed system security assessment. And I would encourage everyone, if you're proposing to do that, to read that section very carefully and ask questions, because it is, we see in a number of proposals that people have a tendency to want to do a seed system security assessment during a project timeline that's often, the reality is that the timeline is too short to do the seed security assessment prior to the seeds being handed, or there's not enough time to actually conduct even a rapid seed system security assessment to inform the distribution of seeds. So we just want to make sure that that's kind of clear, and I'll drop that link in the chat just now. Thank you.
Oh, thanks a lot for that, Carl. And I think it speaks to one of the constraints, of course, the broad constraints that we alluded to earlier on making clear the expectations and requirements from BHA regarding seed system security assessment. So please take time to read through that guideline. I think it has critical information to guide your thoughts on what BHA really requires or expects you to do with regards to seed systems assessments. Abby, go ahead. And then David, I think you wanted to add to what Carl talked about. Abby?
Well, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So David, if you have something in response to this thread, go ahead.
Is this me, David?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Carl. I'm actually will be in Syria in October, so I'll let the team know. Like we're planning, like I listed Car there because I was just in Car in August, and it's one of the areas, like it's a place like Car, it's just very difficult to do your direct procurements from capital Bangui every year, then transport them over difficult roads. So like I feel that, like, as well as the BHA requirements and so on, it's looking for easier options that are as local as possible within the program area. Where we're proposing, we're going to do it in both our program areas. Kwango has BHA funding, and it's also where it's more urgently needed. It's to look at, and it's also quite insecure as well, but we're looking at other options, not just looking at the markets, but looking if there's options towards seed multiplication. We're hoping the seed systems assessment tools will help the team there just inform their decisions better, much better around program design as well. So CAR would be like the first Central African Republic, would be the priority country for us. And other countries where it'd be interesting, like South Sudan I put there because we started doing seed multiplication in one of our program areas, but it's kind of similar. Markets are quite weak because of conflict and all that and insecurity. And it'd just be interesting to look at, is there seed systems outside of the market system? Is there like producers providing seeds to other producers? So hopefully these tools will better inform that.
Yeah, thanks, David. I actually think this might have been one of your points that I'm going to pick up on. The support needed, where you wrote locally based recommended trainers.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
That's actually a request from one of the country teams. They asked me to ask. So yeah, they're looking at, say I can't travel again or have other priorities, and is there like recommended trainers within who are locally based or even regionally based who can work with country teams on training and seed system assessments?
Sure. And I think that's one thing that has come up, a lot of the support needs are around staff capacity. And I know, Luis, I want to bring you and the BHA team into this discussion, because hasn't there been a few different initiatives or yeah, times where there have been a number of people trained in SSAs, and yeah, I guess like what are the shortcomings of that model? How do we not get stuck in the same situation in a few years? You know, if Scale does a few trainings, you know, that's only going to get people so far. So I guess where are things falling short, and how do we move beyond that, so that there are, as you say, David, like locally based trainers? Or I guess, Luis, maybe another question would be, or are the tools sufficient such that if you're a good facilitator and understand seed systems, that's like enough to move forward?
So Abby, can I chime in?
Yeah, no, this is directed at you mostly, Luis. Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to talk about two things. One about the trainers, and then about David's comment on CAR. So on the trainers, no, there have been 2 sessions where lead trainers were trained in 2000 and I think 17 or 18 and 2019. So there theoretically should be a group both trained, but also a group who can help with the data analysis. Unfortunately, after this huge push with BHA funding, COVID came. So for about 2 years, there were not many assessments done. But I would still say there's a group of about 15 to 20 French and English speakers who might be able to help David with maybe some refresher backup, you know, because you have to use the technique like anything. What you could do an assessment once, but you're better at it when you've done it 2 or 3 times. I guess that makes sense to you, but David, yes, there's a list of people. We could suggest you contact them.
Right.
And then I'll get back to Abby's point, is it sufficient? Sorry to go on, but the second point I wanted to say was to respond to David and CAR. And CAR, or I say CAR, whatever you prefer. You've been doing seed distributions there for a long time, not you, but the world community, based on very little evidence, because it's so hard to do good assessments there. And just as an idea, I'm wondering if something like Scale, but I'm not sure, Abby, I'm just planting this, right? In places like CAR, instead of having one organization have to apply to BHA, you know, if multiple organizations under a Scale umbrella could try to do once and for all a good assessment, you know, so doing the background work, maybe a lot of remote work, because it's not always easy. But I don't know if it's fair for someone like Concern to have to take on the whole onus of CAR. And that for real hot spots, South Sudan is another matter, it's so big. But for places like CAR, is it worth an umbrella of organization like Scale to organize an assessment among multiple members and try to do it well? That's just planting an idea. Then the issue, Abby, and then I will hand over the floor about, you know, we've done, because of BHA has a comprehensive approach to this, not one-off. You know, we've developed training tools. We have an e-learning course. We have trainers of trainers. We do punctual seed system assessments. All of these are building blocks to getting the approach used, whatever approach it is, our SSA also, Sadhu. And we've made so much progress, but it's not enough. So we're moving building blocks forward, right? And there are people who can help you, but ultimately an organization has to say, I want to try it. it doesn't help to say the tools are too complicated or we don't have staff. You have to try it, and that's kind of the first step forward. But again, you have tools in French and English, by the way. You also have some tools in Arabic for those who do Northeast Syria. It's a multifaceted approach, and it's not one-off. I don't know if that helps you, Abby. I always thought that setting up a remote capacity might help, meaning that you dial in or you Skype in or you WhatsApp in, for 5 or 6 people who were there no matter what. But it's a multi-pronged approach, and it's ongoing, and we've made a lot of great progress, but not enough. Yep. Handing over.
Thanks, Louise. I appreciate your comments. Yeah, it's helpful to know a bit of the history and unfortunate timing with COVID that kind of put a bit of a stop on assessments. I guess, yeah, kind of opening it back up to the group. Does anyone want to add more context to what they wrote either in the constraint or the support needs boxes? Now is your time to share. Betty.
Yes, thank you very much. I really love the comments that have been put forward. However, one thing I would like to also share based on my experience, I was in around 2014, 2015, trained as a trainer of trainers for system security assessment. It was really a detailed training. However, my challenge was now exposure to do the training. I got all the skills, all that I could do, but the environment where I was working could not allow me because it wasn't a priority in that organization. So because I was not practicing, the skills kept disappearing, okay? So that is one other big challenge that we also encounter despite given the training, because training without practice is again a very big challenge, yeah? So since this training is given, I think the best way forward is to try as much as possible to have an exposure in terms of practical to lead an assessment, and then to ensure that all this is put in practice. But otherwise, if we keep the skills without practicing, slowly it will deteriorate and there will be less impact on this training. I think this is just a comment that I would like to put forward based on the lesson that I learned from the previous training. Thank you.
Thanks, Betty. I think that aligns very much with Luis's point that a group was trained, but it might have been a while since some of them have put this into practice. Zoe?
Okay, thank you for giving me the floor. I will talk on behalf of my country and our project. It's CRS project. So, CRS Madagascar. Okay, yeah. Okay, so CRS Madagascar, yeah. So, up to now, you have no intention to conduct the seed security assessment, but after doing this course, we are aware that during 3 or 4 years or even 5 years, you will let's conduct file system approach or seed distribution or also via PSP, private sector. So we are aware that we have to conduct a seed security system assessment for our country. The problem is that it is not included on the beginning in our budget for our project. So it's a limited budget. After that, I feel not yet able, like I'm not yet comfortable to conduct this assessment, and I will make a point that it was a quick 4 courses during 4 weeks. It was really quick, intense, but really interesting. So it's not enough for us, especially me personally, to be able to conduct this assessment after this quick training. So my support needed, my request is from BHA first of all to reinforce our capacity by doing or participating in one SSSA elsewhere. I mean, to foster our practical skills for this training. We really need this. It's really important to complete our skills and ability to conduct the assessment of this seed security system assessment. So maybe after this practical training, we need follow-up, of course, and maybe for our first SSSA conduct, we'll need, of course, a mentor to follow us up. The last one is that maybe also you have that we need that this assessment should be approved by BHA in order that we are not limited on our budget, but also on our time, because even conducting this assessment needs maybe 1 month to realize it. Thank you. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Zoe. I think you've brought up some really good points. For the Seeds Learning Group, go ahead, Lee.
I just want to respond to Zoe and Madagascar. To my knowledge, there's an ongoing assessment right now being funded not by BHA, but being funded by the World Bank with very big buy-in from the ministry.
Yeah, exactly. It will become. Yeah, exactly. I've also heard about that, and it will be conducted by FAO team. The last SSA down in Madagascar was in 2013, and this time it will be conducted by the FAO team. I don't know if firstly, frankly, I would like to participate on this assessment. I don't know if you can give a hand or something like that to put in practice our skills and our training. I don't know how can you join the team or approach the team who will conduct this assessment. But as you said, it is funded by the World Bank and will be done or led by the FAO organization. Thank you.
So Abby, I'll connect with Zoe after, but I think what this shows is that sometimes seed system assessments are done, but because they're not publicly announced or put in the public domain when they're written up, people don't know about them. But again, this is a leap forward that the World Bank is interested. Zoe, just contact me and I'll hook you up as best as I can, okay?
Yeah, and I think there are just a few things that Zoe mentioned, you know, around one-off training. This kind of aligns with what Betty said too, like one-off training isn't necessarily sufficient. You know, mentorship after would also be helpful, and maybe participating in an SSA somewhere else before, you know, doing it in your own implementation area. So lots of good ideas, Zoe. I did just want to note that the Seeds Learning Group, you know, we didn't expect that by the end of this, you would be able to conduct an SSA necessarily. This wasn't meant to be a full-on training, but more to sensitize you to where these resources are and get into some of the seed system basics. So this is definitely kind of a starting point, recognizing that, yeah, there's a lot more to be done. Ina, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to say something?
No, actually. Sorry.
No problem. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I'm back online now, which is great.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Wilfred, has there been anything else as you're scrolling through that's jumping out at you?
Yeah, I'm around. So I guess we are nearly done in terms of the discussion. I know there are a few other things that have come up in terms of support needs, but I think those can be addressed perhaps later. But you can also feel free to fill in any other thoughts that you have in terms of support needs, as specific as possible, and perhaps tag those to either Scale, BHA, or any other organization that you think of. So I guess with that, we have covered most of the constraints and support needs, and I think I need to then pass it to Abby to take us through the next section.
Ashton, will you go back? Actually, there are just a couple of things that I wanted to note. Like someone mentioned a need for a digital SSA training, and I just want to note that there is one online on seedsystem.org. There was another comment, there's a number of comments kind of towards BHA or about budget for supporting SSAs. I don't know if the BHA team wants to mention that, or Carl, if the guidelines are kind of sufficient, but just wanted to give you guys space in case you wanted to say anything, or Jan.
Hi, yeah. Yes, no, I understand that the folks are always keen to have things funded. One thing we want to be careful of from our side is that we do not fund, when partners send applications in, they're supposed to be sending in an application based off an identified need. They shouldn't be asking us to give them money to go out and find a need, because then it creates a sort of perverse incentive for them to actually find reason to be further funded. I mean, that's one of the reasons why generally BHA doesn't fund assessments for partners at all. And in the very rare situation where something has been funded, it has to be through a consortium, open sourced, available to all, things like that. So that's just one thing. I think another point that's somewhat being highlighted, and I just want to reemphasize it a little bit more. And it's nice that the World Bank is involved with this SSA in Madagascar, and I know that USDA was also funding some a couple of years ago in Asia. I think Myanmar was one of them that they did there. So there are other donors and entities that are funding these, but regardless of who's funding them, I think that one of the most important things that we have to remember is that this is vital, really, for identifying the need and the best way to support farmers through the system. So without doing that, it's really quite problematic what types of interventions are being devised. Because if you don't have those entry points and the scale of the problem and the specific problems identified, then it's quite difficult. So I just want to caution our fellow partners and colleagues in this work. I try not to see it as a us-you divide. It really is all of us working collaboratively and together to support the smallholder farmers in these disaster situations that we're working with. But we do this because it is good practice, not because it's a BHA requirement or a piece of our policy to be able to receive your funding. We, I say collective we, us, you, and everybody else should see this as an absolute necessity to be able to do good programming. Over.
Thanks for that, Jan. Okay, and then the other thing that I just wanted to highlight, I don't think we talked on very much, but a few of you mentioned like coordination or spaces for people to share lessons learned around SSAs, discussion forum, community of practice. So just wanted to note that we've seen that as well as a support need or a recommendation going forward. And as I mentioned, Scale has done a number of these before, so that's definitely something that we can keep in mind. Thanks. Just in the interest of time, I wanted to briefly, Ashton, you can go to the next slide. Just remind you of a few of the recommendations that you have put in the Google Doc. Just to note that we've captured those as well. You can go next. So, you know, from the first session, somewhat we were talking about the goals of seed interventions and clearly stating the goals, especially for emergency programs, whether it's food security or climate resilience. That came up as kind of a general recommendation for implementing partners. As we've talked about a number of times, writing up SSA assessments, putting them in the shared domain. As we've recognized during this conversation, there are a few ongoing assessments. Those reports will be really important for informing seed-related activities in your implementing areas. Another one about minimum standards, as Luis talked about earlier, kind of boiling those down to the essentials. What are the very basics and how little is enough to still maintain that quality. Next slide. And then, yeah, the idea for Scale to write up the common pitfalls that we talked about, why they happen, and how to overcome them moving forward. As well, kind of the resources that we've been sharing around, maybe doing a bit more of an assessment on them or providing more details to the components that might be most relevant. And then additional training, as we've been talking about for the last little while. So just wanted to note that these came out of the Google Docs over the last few weeks, but will be added to this kind of master table that you have been filling out. So, you know, as I mentioned, Scale 1 is ending in just a few months, unfortunately. So a lot of these great recommendations and ideas, we may not be able to carry forward too many of them before we close out. We have a pretty big to-do list before we end. But we are in the process of talking about the follow-on. And so this has given us a lot of really good fodder to thinking about our next award. And so as I mentioned at the start of the session today, we are going to write up all of the notes, the presentations, recordings, so that you have those to look back over as well as share with your colleagues. So you can expect that hopefully within the next week. What we want to do next is, while we have you here, is to share around, to give you about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, however long it takes, to fill out our quick evaluation. This is the first time we've done this kind of learning group, and we really would love your honest and open feedback. What did you like about it? What would you suggest we change if we do this again? You know, we're hopeful to do this in French. You know, this will likely be in the Scale follow-on, but this information is really important for us to figure out how to make these kinds of learning sessions more effective for you. So right now we're going to take 10 minutes while we're still all on the call to fill out the form. Once I see most of you have filled it out, we'll bring everyone back together to do closing remarks so we can hear from you, and then we'll do certificates. So please take a look at the form, and I'll call you back in 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, about 4 of you have submitted. I'm hoping that means the rest of you are still thinking about your answers and working on them. We have about 3 more minutes.
Congratulations, Martina. Hello, hello.
Hi, Steve.
Hi. How are you doing?
Good. The participants are filling out our evaluation form. So they have about 2 more minutes, and then we'll do some final remarks.
Excellent. My daughter just got her braces off.
Very exciting.
It is. All right. So do I need to stay? Can I mute myself?
Yes, you can be
Please
muted.
do.
All right, thanks for those who have submitted. We're going to bring everyone back together. And Ashton, I think we can stop sharing screen for this. And maybe I'll encourage folks whose video supports it to turn on their videos for this last little bit of our time together. It'll be nice to see some of your faces. But as we do with most training activities, there's always a time for final remarks. And we would just love if any of you have things you want to say, whether it's something you appreciated about the Seeds Learning Group, something you'd want to change, any kind of final remark, feel free to raise your hand, and then, yeah, we'll just take a few as you have them. Does anyone want to kick us off? Sadhu, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, I think that's what I would like to flag here is one of my remarks that I already put in my evaluation. So I was saying that globally, all the 4 sessions are very important. They are well sequenced and very well overlapping to facilitate a very quick learning. So yeah, even you have not had opportunity to conduct either rapid system assessment or the full SSSR through the 4 sessions, I think that you can find your way to do it. So congratulations for that, and also highly appreciating the way animation was done. Room was given to the participant to express themselves. So I think that is good. And one of our colleagues made a comment to see how you can keep the group to continue to learn. One thing, learning is one thing, but implementing also is another thing. And you might miss hand once you are not being able to implement what you have been taught. So it will be good to see how we can have a small group to see how we can share. Maybe those who have had opportunity to implement any SSR to share with the group, and also to see how we can continue to interact together so that those who have not had opportunity to implement this learning for the coming months will not lose their own hand. So that is my main comments. If it is like communities of practices, if it's any kind of group, I think that it will be good to think and see how we can connect this group together for a longer time and to implement what we have been taught. Thanks to all of you. Over to you.
Thanks, Sadhu. Much appreciated. Anyone else have a comment they'd like to share? Tilahun, I see you're saying if this group can continue to meet periodically, keep networking and sharing experiences. I think that's a really interesting idea and something that, yeah, we can definitely consider creating space for. Yeah, if it's a monthly, call if people want to join in and discuss. So that's something that we can think a little bit more about and come back to you guys. Claudio, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to appreciate the opportunity to participate in this training. I think one thing that stood out for me is there's quite a number of resources that are available for one to conduct a seed security assessment. And I'm happy to also realize that there are quite a number of assessments that have been done. Unfortunately, maybe because these are not done at a public domain, I didn't know that there were assessments that were done, especially for our country, Zimbabwe. And I'm realizing that I was thinking that there hadn't been an assessment done. But I see that we have had an assessment in 2010 and 2018. And it's good that we have some resource where we can benchmark against. Thank you. Well out.
Thanks, Claudio. Yeah, great to know that you are now aware of these resources. That was definitely one of the aims of the learning group. Joseph.
Yes, thank you very much, Abi. This is Joseph from South Sudan, and I am privileged to participate in this seed learning group. And it's really a privilege and a good learning platform for me. Just like last year, we were able to conduct the RSSA in South Sudan. And of course, we really faced a lot of challenges while we were trying to carry out these RSSA in South Sudan with other partners. In relation to tools, in relation to the planning capacity and so on. But I just want to say with this training, I think I have gained a lot. And of course, this can provide more knowledge to be able to also share with the country office, with the country staff across the South Sudan location. And of course, we look for the best. As colleagues have suggested, I also want to reiterate the fact that it will be very, very important if the group can meet maybe on monthly basis or on quarterly basis, so that we can also get from across the world, across the countries, on how we are doing in terms of the RSSA or the SSA. Thank you, and over to you.
Thanks, Joseph. Any others? Well, if not, maybe I can offer if BHA wants to say any final words, not trying to put you guys on the spot, but just want to offer space. If not, I'm sure Luis Wilfred has a final word.
Sure, I'll jump in and say something. No, thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this process, even though some of us have been in listening mode throughout. But it's been really a fantastic opportunity, I think, and use of the scale award to reach out to these specific pieces like this. And I think what's been exciting for us is to see how many different partners that we engage with have been here. And of course, you know, some of the folks we know quite well, and then there's others that are relatively newer, which is also encouraging that, you know, there's greater participation. And yes, just a big round of applause to you all. And thanks also to Louise for being willing to be part of this and give of all her expertise and experience over the years. Thanks. Over.
Thanks, Jan. And just to say thank you so much for BHA's commitment and participation throughout. It says a lot that you guys have had somebody here for each of the sessions, and some of you have been at all of them. So just shows that this is a really important topic for BHA, and yeah, we really appreciate your active engagement. Louise or Wilfred?
Hello, everybody. Just to comment that this has been an incredibly thoughtful group. This really was a co-learning, a sharing of experiences, trying to figure out how to move forward. And I would hope in the future that maybe some of you actually work across organizations, try to do these assessments together and create even more rigorous assessments. So thank you all for your participation, or basically your contributions. And I think, you know, again, it's fantastic that Scale was willing to host this, but also that we had BHA as colleagues in this course. Very, very much appreciated. And of course, you know, thanks to Ashton, who's invisible, but Abby and Wilfred, it's been a wonderful experience. Feel free to contact me, anyone. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being part of this. And I'm grateful that I met such a great team that we worked together through the 4 sessions. And it's amazing the kind of contributions, your ability to sort of talk through some of the issues in the groups, and also to share with us your experiences, the lessons, and also the challenges, of course. I think it's a great opportunity that we have also learned a lot from you. And I think I really appreciate the teamwork, the spirit, and your consistency. I'm really grateful for your cooperation, and I know we shall meet in another forum. Sorry, my bandwidth couldn't allow me to do a video, but I'm really grateful to see the likes of Jan. I think it's a long time since we met during the training, so a great opportunity for us all, I think. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, just a huge thank you for your active participation. For I think we had 80 to 90% of you here at every session, which just says a lot about your commitment to this topic, to your implementation. Yeah, it means a lot for us. And then before you go, just to note that we are giving you certificates. We have not forgotten about that. Here is an example of what they will look like, and they will be in your inbox by tomorrow morning latest. So here's an example. If you can see John's, his certificate of participation, you'll each be getting one. I think I've gotten most of your names. If you haven't filled out the sheet that tells me how you want your name spelled, please do. It should be in your email. But we're excited. Thank you again. We really, really appreciate you and your work, and look forward to staying in touch. You should hear from me within the next week or so with all the material. So thanks again. Take care, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Cheerio.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.